simplify putting things into our generalized format, but then of course tweaking it and customizing it, but just saving time with some of those admin tasks that do take our writing team extra time and don't need to anymore because now you have a tool that can help you, format properly. So small things like that where we can kind of shave time off of that process and then actually, focus more on the content and the writing piece and making that strong. And then that means scaling, right? That means you can take on more clients.
Welcome to Career Coaching Secrets, the podcast where we talk with successful career coaches on how they built their success and the hard lessons they learned along the way. My name is Davis Wynn, and I'm the founder of Purple Circle, where we help career coaches scale their business to $100,000 years, $100,000 months, and even $100,000 weeks. Before Purple Circle, I've grown several 7- and 8-figure career coaching businesses myself, and have been a consultant at 2 career coaching businesses that are doing over $100 million each. Whether you're an established coach or building your practice for the first time, you'll discover the secrets to elevating your coaching business.
Welcome to Career Coaching Secrets Podcast. I'm Pedro, and I'm excited to welcome Marcelle Yeager, founder of Career Valley, who has cracked the code on transforming executive experience into compelling narratives that actually land interviews. With 10 years of strategic communications at Booz Allen Hamilton and the Department of State, plus credentials from Georgetown and University of Maryland, she's been featured on How I Built This and in Money magazine for her proven approach. Her track record is impressive. 92% of clients get interview within 3 weeks, 73% receive job offers, and they seen an average 20% salary increase. She's guided CEOs, Fortune 500 senior leaders, and former congressional members through career transitions while building Career Valley across 4 different countries as her family moves around the world. Please welcome to the show, Marcelle.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here.
Yeah, I'm excited that you're here. And I always do this. I always rewind a bit, back to the origin story, because every coach has that moment when they look at their life and say, you know what? I guess this is what I'm doing now, right? So when was that for you?
For me, it was actually when we found out that we would be moving around the world for my husband's job. And so that was back in 2011. Um, and I was just finishing my MBA, working full time, and thought, well, I need to figure out something portable to take with me to continue my career, right? So I had to do some research and figure out what could that be. I actually talked to friends and family and colleagues and said, like, what do you feel like you come to advice for me for? Where do I guide you? And I thought too to myself, like, what would I do for free? And honestly, this is how Career Valet was born, because I realized for years, even though I was in communications on the side, I was always advising friends, coworkers on salary negotiations, resumes, cover letters, and all of those things.
Hmm. A digital nomad. Okay, I love that. That's interesting. And I would emphasize one thing. You mentioned your network, right? And I see a lot of people that start their own business and they're like, I'm gonna reach out to people. I'm not gonna talk to the people I know. I know it's weird, but sometimes people do that, right? And now I want to understand one thing. So you started contacting your friends. You start with the resumes and your own network. But when did you felt like, okay, I'm moving from helping people to, you know what? This is actually a real business.
That was very interesting for you to say because when we launched the business, I felt very strange. Like, how can I charge people to, pay me for the things I've been advising people on for years? So, exactly. Great question. Um, and it took quite a number of clients for me to feel more comfortable about it. And I think what helped was getting positive feedback. So, like, somebody would say, wow, I'm so glad I came to you, or this is great advice, or I have never heard this before. Then I began to build that confidence of like, okay, there's something here, and I do deserve to get paid for this, right? It's not just kind of a hobby or something I do on the side for free.
Okay. And after you got rolling, right? Who are the people that kept showing up? The ones you realize, okay, this is my tribe. This is the people I can help the most. Because in the early days, especially in coaching, we see a lot of coaches that are trying to help everyone and they're trying to find their, ideal client profile, testing water. Sometimes there you go into different rabbit holes. So I just trying to understand if you were able to, niche down and how did that felt for you?
Yeah, that's a great question too, because at first, everybody says you should have your niche, right? And you should do that from the start. But really, we thought, well, we can help. And, I was thinking we can help everybody. Really, it doesn't matter what industry they're in, what job they have. We know we have a framework, we can do it. And so I really didn't do that. And then over time, though, like you said, things started to sort of fall in place. And for some reason, we ended up with a lot of folks in tech in all different kinds of jobs, a lot of folks in healthcare, a lot of folks in like the general business, marketing, finance, and so forth. I'm not quite sure why that happened. I think it's, a reflection of you get certain clients, through connections and referrals, and then they have their network, and then it starts kind of growing. And so the people within those industries started coming to us, and we became more known. And so that's my best guess. There was no kind of determined formula or strategic plan to try to reach those folks, but it kind of happened that way naturally.
Mm, interesting. Now, let's pretend I'm one of those, right? You're ICP, one of those people. Like I'm the tech side, the healthcare, the finance, the marketing, and I'm like trying to find you. How would I be able to do that, in the marketing side?
Yeah. So we've been on, social media for a long time. And we've also done a lot of work with, we've done newsletters for a long time, which continues to be one of our strongest points, with high open rates. And so, but to be totally honest, and I think like a lot of coaches, it was word of mouth, right? So that's how people were finding us. And we've honestly, until now, we've never done a lot of, sort of planned marketing and advertising and things like that. And looking back, I wish that's something we had started earlier.
So we're in the middle of doing it, sounds like. That's interesting. Exciting also. Now, let's pretend I'm one of those people again, okay? And I was sent through a referral. I saw your newsletter and I resonated with what you posted, right? And I'm like, okay, I want to talk to Marcelle. I talked to you and I ended up closing. I want to be your client. What does that experience would look like right now for me, right? As your
Hmm.
client?
Yeah. So once someone signs up, we go through a very personalized process. It's very structured. But we have develop a custom questionnaire that we give to everybody once they come in the door. And it truly is customized. There are some general questions we ask everybody, but there's also questions against your work history, as well as your targets and where you're trying to go. And those are developed by a human. And so once we gather that information, the next stage is that we have a 1 hour consultation call. And in that point, we're able to dive deeper into that questionnaire. We get into things like where, what's unique about your background. And that's based on, of course, our years of experience, both in the workplace as well as working with clients. And so we're then able to gather a lot of information and can decide, okay, what are we now going to put into the products that we're going to create, the resume, LinkedIn profile. And then, of course, if we're doing interview coaching, it's important too, because we're helping them develop those skills of talking through what is my story, what makes me unique, and how to talk to employers, right? And not just recite a laundry list of who they are. So again, it's very very personalized. And as I always say to our team, and the way we train everybody is to put yourself in the shoes of this client, the person that you're helping. Pretend you're the one applying for the job. That's really the attitude you need to take.
Mm. I love the fact that you said, and this is a real person in the world of AI, right? And we actually, this is the human being dealing with you. Okay. I love that. And I mean, your work seems pretty hands-on, right? We're talking about the coaching, we're talking about the customization around this, the questionnaire, and then we have the onboarding session. And we see a lot of coaches out there that they're wearing all the hats, right? So how do you think about capacity so you don't stretch yourself too thin?
Yeah, so that was happening. And that's why I started to build a team, because I realized probably 10, 11 years ago that if I was doing all the work in the, business, I couldn't be working on the business, right? And I'm a creative person. I actually enjoy a lot of that, like coming up with new ideas, testing new things, all of those sorts of things. And so to me, it was kind of feeling like I was draining my energy a little bit from trying to do all of it. And so I decided, okay, if we really want to grow, I need to hire people to help with this. So now that's what happened, is like the team mostly does the client work. I still do a lot of the intake when it comes to sales and speaking with people initially, but then the team really takes everything else on. And I still do some coaching as well, but in terms of working on like a full package, that's typically not me. So it's opened
Mm,
me up to actually work on the business.
interesting. Okay, so you saw the writing on the wall. This is not sustainable. I need to make a change. Yeah, and it's good that you didn't wait for the burnout, right? Because I see a lot of coaches out there that do. So,
Yes,
but I wanna tap into your experience a little bit because I love your origin story, right? You start helping friends and all of that. And one thing every coach wrestles with at some point is pricing, right? Such a hot topic, and how to package their work. So my question is, how do you think it about how do you think about it today? And we're not talking about hard numbers. It's like it's such a self-worth path, right? In the service-based industry, you're like, oh, am I charging enough? Am I not charging enough? So, were there any lessons along the way that shaped how you landed where you are right now?
absolutely. I mean, first of all, I see this still so much, and it really bothers me. And I understand why, but too many people devalue their services from the beginning. I mean, we definitely charged too little in the beginning, and I wish that we had done more research to really figure out not just what the competition was doing, which we did, of course, but also what is our value, right? Like, and how does that compare to what else is being offered in the market? It's not just that we're going to be customized instead of templated, like a lot of companies were when we started, but what is that like extra value we have that maybe other coaches or other resume writers don't have? And actually, this is something that, as you asked about a lesson along the way, a number of years ago, I heard somebody say, or I read an article saying, it's not, don't think about your time just on an hourly basis or on a time basis, right? That's not how you need to price. Your price in the service industry also needs to reflect that expertise, that value, the years of experience that you have, right? Because I think too many coaches I've seen really do think about it on a project or an hourly basis, whereas they're not considering, okay, what is the sum value of all these years of experience, like in the workplace, working with clients, all the research I've done. That's value, and that costs money, right? And I think a lot of people fall short there.
Interesting. Yeah, it's not like you're tying the outcome to a clock, right? Nothing happens in the 6 minute mark. It's like, oh my God, now we got an hour. And always well, two things, at least in my perspective, right? First, if you tie to a clock in an hourly base, and I did that on my own practice, you're turning yourself into a commodity, right? It's like people start comparing your fee to others that actually charge by the hour. So that's a weird scale, first of all.
Mhm.
And second, it's like sometimes it's like, so I'm gonna end the meeting 5 minutes earlier. Is that fair? Or I'm gonna end the meeting 5 minutes later. Should I be getting more? It gets into a weird math situation. I'm not sure if you agree with that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, we've seen that happen. And I feel like, times where we've been less busy, we tend to spend more time and then go over. But is that fair to the other clients, right? So I think you do have to be careful about the pricing, and you're valuing your own time, to be quite frank, right? So it's not only about even just the pricing and how you price that, but you have to protect and value your own time.
Yes, I agree with that. Now, I'm curious, where are you taking all this? Where do you see the business going, looking ahead? You think about, scaling, hiring, or there's next step you're excited about?
Yeah, so I'm actually really focused right now on two things, and going back to the comment about sales and marketing and wishing we had started more actively doing it sooner and not relying fully on, word of mouth for so long, was that we are now focused really, yes, on scaling the individual customer, which has traditionally been our base, right, in our foundation and the majority of our customers. So that's one focus, and really, like, again, pushing, hiring a digital marketing firm, doing our own internal research to figure out what else we need to do to reach the ideal customers. And at the same time, exploring more on the business to business side. So, a lot of, for years, it's kind of felt like, well, there's leadership coaches, there's life coaches, there's a lot of different types of coaches out there. And I'd always thought of us sort of as like more the experts with the products, like the resumes and the LinkedIn and so forth. But then clients would say, you're really actually coaches. Like, that's what you're doing as part of this process. I've learned so much about XYZ. And I've realized that there's a lot we can offer to organizations as well. And so we're exploring different things among, like, workforce development organizations, universities, and even some companies, where we're trying to help them sort of work through using our expertise, but like help them figure out, use that and help them figure out how to solve some of the challenges, right, that are happening now. Because if you think about it, there's a lot of things changing, right, with AI in the job market, with higher education, and how can we offer our expertise to help them navigate those changes. So that's kind of, those two directions are where we're really
Mm,
focused.
okay. Now, can you walk me through like the B2B, the B2C got very clear to me, but a B2B, like what would you say is a good example? Like pretend I'm the owner of a company, right? And I want to hire you on a B2B side. What would it be a challenge that you guys would be able to help me with?
Well, nowadays, right, there's a lot of issues around HR and how hiring is happening. So, of course, everybody's probably heard, on the candidate side, you've got people using AI, and then on the employer side, they're using AI for intake of candidates within their applicant tracking system software and other devices they use for hiring. And they're not talking very well and meeting each other. And so there's a lot of issues now with, did a real person write this resume? Is this even a real person? Is this job posting a real posting, or is it a fake posting that a company's posted? And so really, like, trying to help that side figure out how we're going to source candidates better. Um, and there's also, another way to look at that too, which is inside these companies, right? You have a lot of places where employees are disengaged, And that might start at that, hiring process that's a bit broken right now. And sort of helping to make sure that along this journey, as people enter the company, that they're, coached, like well taken care of, that they understand how their contributions are valued. And so it's almost like taking them from the candidate and into the company as an engaged and strong employee.
Mm, interesting. Okay. You know, whenever we're aiming towards the next chapter, there's always something we're refining in the present. So, what are you currently trying to improve or tighten up in your business right now?
Yes, we're doing that at the same time as all this external work. So speaking of AI, right? I'm sounding already like I'm anti AI, which is not the case. I do think there are really great ways to use it, right? For distilling information, for brainstorming, and all of these great things. So we're actually looking at it as a tool to streamline some of the client workflow. And so, what are the ways we can, simplify putting things into our generalized format, but then, of course, tweaking it and customizing it, but just saving time with some of those admin tasks that do take our writing team extra time and don't need to anymore, because now you have a tool that can help you, format properly. So small things like that, where we can kind of shave time off of that process and then actually, focus more on the content and the writing piece and making that strong. And then that means scaling, right? That means you can take on more clients, because if team members spending less time on one project, they can take on more clients at one time. So that will allow these marketing efforts and things we're doing to help us scale to actually work, right? As you talked about earlier, capacity is something you have to be aware of as you grow.
So it's about buying back time, getting more efficient, but not necessarily replacing the human component. I
Exactly.
got that right? Mm, interesting. Okay. You know, I want to tap into your experience for a second because people listening can really benefit from this because you've been in the game long enough, right? To hear all kinds of business advice. Some are good, some are bad. So, what's one piece of business advice you hear all the time that you think is, I think that's overrated or misunderstood?
Honestly, the first thing that comes to mind is social media. And I shouldn't be saying this because, of course, we're trying to enhance ours
Exactly.
right
That's
now.
why I'm laughing.
Right? Yeah. So we can laugh about it. I think that what I'm saying is it's like the angle of advice, right? So I don't know, for years it's been like, okay, you have to post X number of times a week to get seen on this platform, and you need to use this format, and it has to be this. Well, just like with AI, these platforms are changing. I mean, daily, sometimes weekly, monthly. You're not going to keep up. You're not going to beat the algorithm every time. To me, what's worked best is being consistent. And I say that because I've had people comment and tell me like that I haven't seen for years, or I'll get an email and be someone saying, "Hey, your newsletter was great. I had no idea this person was even on my mailing list," right? Or in reaction to a post on social media, maybe someone reacts and you think, "Oh, I didn't know this person followed me." But it's the consistency of sending the newsletter, of posting every week. I think it's more about that than the numbers. Like, I haven't disappeared, I guess would be my best advice, is don't disappear. And even if you go through something hard, you can automate these things, right? Speaking of saving time, you can batch them ahead of time. You can make it work. So to me, it's like, you can't always be on your game or like 100%, but showing up, not going away, and being consistent, I think is the best advice around email newsletters, social media, and all of that.
Mm. I'm gonna add something to that, okay, if you don't mind me.
Please.
You mentioned the newsletter and you mentioned consistency, but at the end of the day, you gave me an example of someone who complimented your newsletter. So the content. So if you have good content, you're gonna have a bulletproof plan against the noise, right? So if you have such a good newsletter like that potential client told you, I mean, of course, there is at the end of the day there is consistency, but also there is like quality of content. I think that is so important because that beats sometimes the algorithm, if that makes any sense.
Yes, yes. And, everyone's always saying like, emails going away are not important, but I feel like that has been for us the most stable and best return on investment has been the content of that newsletter, as you said. So I 100% agree. You can't just put fluff out there, but the thoughtful content really is what matters.
Yeah, and there's so much content out there that reeks AI, right? You're like, oh, it's not X, it's not Y, it's just Z, or the hard truth. Dot dot dot. So, I mean,
Yeah.
sometimes I'm like, in on the early days, it was the dash, right? But now it's like the text, you can tell it's AI. Do you agree with me on that?
Oh yeah. Yeah. And this is something where we even get, clients coming and sending us something and we say, this doesn't even sound like a person. How, who wrote this? So to me, like I love writing, so it's easy for me to say, and I know a lot of people don't. So it's easy for me to do the writing. But for those who don't, that's where again, like AI can be great. Like it can give you ideas. It can even review what you've written and suggest improvements, but it's still your content's going to be way better and less robotic if you actually draft it first, right? Or if you take the ideas and then draft something. I do not think it should replace you. I mean, yeah, there might be a couple sentences here and there where you might use almost every single word, and that's fine. But generally, it's just like the work we do, right? It's like you have to be able to tell your story because if you can't tell it on paper, okay, maybe you'll get through the system fine. But then you're going to get to the interview, like
Mm,
a human is assessing you. And so if you as a human can't express yourself, can't tell that story, then what good is the written word that's not humanized, right? Like you have to know how to tell it on paper and verbally. I think it's so important and people are forgetting that. And I think it's going to
mm,
be a bit of a problem with the
yes.
reliance on
I
AI.
agree with that. Okay, and on the other side, like, what's a piece of advice you wish more people actually took seriously?
Oh, that's a good question. I mean, I think that it's hard, right? Entrepreneurship is really hard. And I don't think it's for everybody. I've talked to a lot of entrepreneurs over the years, and you really have to be okay for things not going well all the time, right? There's failures, small and big. It's hard work. These quick fixes like, oh, you can make X amount of dollars in a month, like right away. And those stories, right, of these big successes happen very rarely. So I think it's important to really, if you're thinking about going off on your own or even continuing with your business and questioning whether you should, I mean, yeah, I think you really need to almost do an analysis of how it's going and like what are your numbers? What is your energy like? What are your goals? Do you still love this? Can you do this for years and years to come working hard? And really evaluate if it's either to start if it's the right direction for you or if you're already going and having doubts like is it something you want to keep up with.
Hmm, I love that. Okay. And if someone listening wants to connect with you or follow your work, Marcel, where can people find you and connect with you?
The best two places are LinkedIn, if you find me under Marcelle Yeager or Career Valet, or our website, which is www.careervalet.com.
Okay. There were a few things you shared today that really stayed with me. I would put it like that. Building that confidence in the early days through repetition I think that's so crucial. One of my first clients, because I'm a coach as well, is like, he opened my eyes. I was like, I created this entire plan, right? And how I'm going to solve X, Y, and Z. And he starts immediately in the first call telling me he lacked confidence, he was worthless, and all of that. And I was like, oh my God. And I wasn't expecting it. So that's the repetition, right? I was like going with a point of view like of a consultant. Oh, we're gonna take a look at your resume. We're gonna do it. He's like, yeah, I'm not really sure. I should even attend a call because I'm not good enough. That type of mentality. So I think that's when the coaching piece starts, and I think the repetition, the reps, they're so important. And I would emphasize the fact that you are like fearless to the point that you're contacting your own network. And I know sometimes people feel judged about doing that. Oh, I'm gonna talk to X, Y, Z. What they're gonna think about me? I had this big corporate background, and they're like, what they're, all that bullshit, that noise that goes back to you, like sometimes imposter syndrome, those type of things. So you cut through that like butter, which I commend you on doing that. So really cool. I would say when I asked you about capacity, that you told me that was happening. So that was such a vulnerable moment, right? From you. It's like, yeah, I've been through a lot of stuff, and sometimes I'm still solving it, because that's the true journey, right? You're not just from a point of view of like, I'm in a lecture standpoint and I'm gonna tell people what they should do. No, I'm actually in the middle of it. I'm still solving stuff. So I really like that. Okay. I think that's key for a true coach. It's like having that growth mindset. I really liked the way you framed about pricing, the value based. And when you had mentors and people tell you, you know what, Marcel, maybe take a look at what you invested, right? It doesn't have necessarily to be like a cost mentality, but into an outcome mentality. But yes, you invested years and years of study, research, career development. So I would say this is just my long way of saying, right, that I appreciate what you do, and I appreciate you being here and sharing so openly today. Okay, it was great having you on.
Thank you. It was great talking to you as well.
That's it for this episode of Career Coaching Secrets. If you enjoyed this conversation, you can subscribe on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you're listening to this episode to catch future episodes. This podcast was brought to you by Purple Circle, where we help career coaches scale their business to $100,000 years, $100,000 months, or even $100,000 weeks, all without burning out and making sure that you're making the impact and having the life that you want. To learn more about our community and how we can help you, visit joinpurplecircle.com.